Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse and yet another breakdown. Today we will be breaking down and giving our initial thoughts on episode 6 of the newest spin-off Walking Dead series following Daryl Dixon in France. The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, of course. And this episode being the season 1 finale. The title of this episode being Coming Home. And this episode actually starts off with a very short flashback scene taking place on the beaches of Normandy during the Battle of D-Day, where many brave souls gave their lives for humanity. And we see the scenes of that battle as the echoes of people chanting Dixon's name can be heard, which is where we head straight back into the arena where Daryl faces the variant walker in front of the crowd. A crowd that doesn't expect him to make it out of this alive. Except for Laurent, of course, who assures he will win this battle. In which he does, as he does eventually take the walker down, but this is only the beginning of this all, as they then bring Quinn into the arena with Daryl next and chain them to each other. And it seems as if they will have to fight each other to the death. But that is not the case. As the lights go out in the room and singular ones turn on one by one, they reveal multiple variant walkers that the two will have to face together while being chained up. The tranquilizers, of course, powering most of these guys up, but when it's not successful, their heads just explode, it seems. Now, once the walkers are actually free, it starts to get absolutely crazy, as two of the walkers start fighting each other, shortening their numbers even more, as a walker kills another walker. This is where Laurent loses his hope and starts praying for Daryl himself. Quinn and Daryl work together to take down the walkers, who are super aggressive even after losing limbs. One of them has metal covering its brain area, so they have to use their chain to pull its head off. In which they do, and after doing so, the crowd watching them chants Daryl's name, as they have gained his favor. He takes the walker's head and throws it at Madame Genet, in turn sending her a message himself. So she tells her men to just get this over with. As they are about to just gun Daryl down, they end up getting taken out by Falou, who hides amongst the crowd. This scene just reminded me of a typical scene you would see in a sort of spy movie or a John Wick movie. Now, with the chaos ensuing in the building, everyone gets their chance to leave and escape, except for Laurent and Isabelle, who are put into a cell by Madame Genet, who makes remarks about the whole Laurent being the Messiah thing. But Isabelle, of course, used her old thieving skills to steal the key to the cells. So now these two can escape as well. But it's not looking too good for Daryl and Quinn, as Quinn is growing weaker and weaker and clearly beginning to die, as he has been burnt, scratched, or bitten by one of the variant walkers from the arena. So they decide to cut off his hand, which frees them both from the chains. This reminded me of what Merle Dixon did to free himself from the handcuffs on the roof in The Walking Dead Season 1. Quinn decides to distract Madame Genet's guards and basically just sacrifices himself before he turns and tells Daryl to tell Isabelle that he did this for her, and he was thinking of her before he died, as he remembers just how badly he actually treated her. While sneaking around the base, Daryl runs into Falou, Sylvie, and Emile, and they fully free him from Genet's chains and agree to get a vehicle started up while he heads down into the tunnels to search for Laurent and Isabelle, who he finds on the other side of a gate in the tunnels. And as they try to get through and get to Daryl, a walker approaches, and it happens to be none other than Quinn himself, who has now turned, and it seems like he actually turned rather quickly. Now, as Isabelle is being attacked by the turned version of Quinn, her former boyfriend, Daryl hands Laurent his axe and tells him to do it, and that God will forgive him for doing it. After some hesitation, he decides to finally put Quinn down, his own father being the first of his walker kills, it seems. Falou and Emile say goodbye to our main group as they head off in their vehicle and towards the nest. Isabelle apologizes to Laurent for what he had to do, referring to him putting down Quinn. But he says that sometimes you have to do terrible things even if you don't want to. as it may be the right decision. But their vehicle ride doesn't really last long. After just a short while, the car breaks down and they are forced to stop and repair it. While Laurent and Sylvie stay in the car asleep, Isabelle takes the time to speak to and open up to Daryl as he fixes their car up. She admits that she lied to him about the drawing of the man on the beach, which I think most of us expected to be a lie anyways. But she remarks that Laurent has never had someone like Daryl in his life, and it's almost better than just never meeting Quinn, his actual father, to begin with. Now, I definitely think that Isabelle may have developed some feelings for Daryl. Anyways though, as he goes under the car to repair it, he doesn't get an answer back from Isabelle. So he gets back up only to be met by Codron and Genet's men, who have followed them there and captured them. One of Genet's men says that they are ordered to kill them all, but to kill the boy first, as he hands Codron the gun and has him do it, in the quote-unquote honor of his brother. But obviously, Codron never agreed to killing kids. He just wanted to exact his revenge on Daryl and Daryl alone. So, just like Mercer did, he takes out his own men and lets our group free. Although he isn't going to let Daryl free fully, as someday he will get that revenge. He even tells them which way and how long it is to get to the nest, reminding them to burn their vehicle because it is so easy to track down. As our group finally arrives at the nest, which is actually a real location in France in the real world, known as Mont Saint-Michel. In this universe, during the apocalypse at least, you can see it as a huge fortress, safe from any walkers and possible enemies, but also a home to those of all religions that all await their new messiah or leader, Laurent, as they welcome him and our group with open arms and give them any assistance they may need. After getting her wounds patched up, Isabelle wakes back up and takes in the views and the environment of the nest as she watches over Daryl, who is training the people here how to shoot a gun, as they must be prepared and ready for when or if Madame Genet shows up at their doorstep. And you can tell that Daryl is growing rather comfortable here and is developing a relationship with everyone here at the nest, like his family away from his family and his home away from home, as he partakes in eating meals with all of them, and he spends tons of time with Laurent, which is unfortunate because he plans on leaving, but nobody wants him to do so. Not Laurent, not Isabelle, and even Losang tells him that people here in France need him. But Daryl has known everyone back home for years and years, and even so, he still seems conflicted with his decision. But he has to get back home as he did make a promise. We then see Codron meet with Madame Genet, where he informs her that him and his men were ambushed by Daryl and they were all taken out except for him, of course. Which we all know is a lie, and Genet knows it too, where he admits that he couldn't go through with killing the kid, as he then refuses to tell her the location of the nest itself. So she has him taken away, promising that it is only going to hurt more if he continues to lie, that is. Now, could you imagine if she tortures Codron to the point where they just start experimenting on him, just for their next trials at variant walkers? But anyways, Daryl arrives right by the beach at a cemetery. These are the graves of all of the soldiers that fought during the Battle of D-Day that fell. He then begins to search for a specific grave of his grandfather's, who he spoke of earlier this episode, and of course, who we actually saw at the very beginning of this episode. He stops at a grave reading William T. Dixon. Finally, he found his grandfather's burial site. And for the first time in a very long time, Daryl actually grows a bit emotional. All before spotting the boat off in the distance, in which he waves down, only to wake up tons of walkers that have been resting at this beach for who knows how long. He cuts through them just to get to the beach, but then he is stopped by Laurent. And now he is stuck once more. He must choose to go to the boat and go back home, or go back to Laurent and actually save him, as he is being surrounded by those walkers. Which is where we actually end off with Daryl himself in this episode, as we head back to America as a random man drives down the street on Daryl's bike, as a car speeds after it. After the man fires at the car, forcing it to stop, none other than Carol steps out of it, who of course is searching for her best friend, Daryl. Now this is going to play a big role for the second season, which is actually going to be titled The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol. So it's like we will have two different perspectives in this series going forward. One of Daryl, who is actually in France, and the other being Carol, who is heading to France. Anyways though, she basically interrogates this man after taking him down, and she is pointed in the direction of the gas station that was turned into a trading post. So she heads there on Daryl's bike, and this is where the episode ends off. And wow, overall I absolutely loved this episode and thought it was incredible and a great send-off for the first season that also perfectly set everything up for the second season. The action in this episode was awesome, but all in all, this entire season was great. Now honestly, I think I enjoyed it more than Dead City, which was also amazing in its own right. Now something that really impressed me about this episode and just the season overall really was not only the amount of characterization, but the amount of world building that we got in this. All of the new characters are super interesting, and the villains were terrifying and are really only getting more intriguing and scary as time goes by. But personally, I think I would rate the finale of the season a 9 out of 10. I loved it. And I seriously cannot wait for season 2 of this show, but also just can't wait for more Walking Dead content overall. And the next piece being The Ones Who Live, which I already know is going to be absolutely fantastic. But of course, I would like to hear about your thoughts on this episode and the whole season as a whole as well, so make sure to leave them down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed our breakdown and review on this episode, don't forget to give it a like, and with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.